When Michael Porter Jr. signed a 5-year, $180 million deal back in 2021, the Nuggets figured, hey, this was a guy who just had a fantastic season. 19 points a game on absolute elite efficiency, an incredible piece to complement Jokic. Most importantly, he proved that he can remain healthy, and at 22 years old, he's bound to make a drastic improvement through the duration of this contract. That was the hope. The Nuggets didn't pay him for what he was, but what he could become. Unfortunately, Porter has not made the jump as projected. He still can't dribble, he can barely pass, and his defense is laughable, combined with the NBA's implementation of the second apron luxury tax that further penalizes teams that spend too much. The result, a championship contender that's been bottlenecked by several bad contracts. In this video, let's take a look at Michael Porter Jr. and 5 other role players who are making an exorbitant amount of money, but their impact on the court clearly do not match their salaries. Westbrook. After a nice steal from Russell, Porter in the corner off prior to the start of the 2024-25 season. Porter Jr. made a daunting statement to the media. Quote, "If we don't win it this year, we all know they might have to break it up." What he did not foresee, however, is that he is the reason the Nuggets need to break it up and seek a change to their roster. While he's remained relatively healthy as he approaches his prime, he caught a stroke of bad luck. A grade 2 shoulder injury, projected to take over a month to recover. Porter decided to play through it and help his team in the playoffs. Well, help is a bit of a stretch. A crippled Porter was barely able to shoot, and he was a negative in the 31 minutes a game he played in the postseason. While the injury was very unfortunate timing, perhaps the bigger issue is the Nuggets don't have any depth to begin with, so there's no one to replace him. They do kind of have Peyton Watson, who plays the same position, but he's a completely different player than Porter, and he can't replicate his skill set with Porter's contract. They can't even get a capable backup for him. It epitomizes the problem this era of the Nuggets have struggled with for all these years. By massively overpaying a role player like Porter, it's not possible to improve their bench. Over the years, Jamal Murray has been the guy we pointed our fingers to, but at least in the playoffs, he's had performances that are superstar level, albeit inconsistently, but he still shows up most of the time. It's Porter Jr., who's the 3rd highest paid player on the team, set to make over $40 million by 2027. Yet, out of all starters, he's been the least productive and most expendable player all season long, even before he hurt his shoulder. Heck, there are still games where he gets benched at the end of the 4th quarter. Now, if you were to ask me, does Porter Jr. have the worst contract out of all role players in the league? No, I don't think so. There's plenty of players, some you'll see in this video, that produce far less than Porter does. But it's the combination of his production and the Nuggets' dwindling hopes for another championship. Because his contract is the major red flag in holding them back. Kyle Kuzma, in Game 1 between the Bucks and Pacers. Kyle Kuzma set an NBA record, the most minutes played by a starter in the playoffs, without recording a single stat in 21 minutes. He went for the also-glorious 0-0-0-0 stat line, which included 0 of 5 from the field and 0 of 2 from the foul line. Most fans like to call it the Tony Snell Kuzma. Spent 21 minutes doing cardio, and it was at this moment when the Bucks realized they made a catastrophic mistake when the Milwaukee Bucks traded away longtime shooting guard and fan favorite Chris Middleton, a core piece of their franchise. It signaled the start of a new era in Milwaukee. Specifically, it meant the Bucks are willing to do whatever they can to help Giannis win another title. And honestly, Middleton's history of injuries saw him steadily regress over the years. It probably was time for him to go. His replacement, however, leaves a lot to be desired. Kuzma spent over 3 years in Washington, D.C., becoming the poster boy for empty stats. So when he joined and expressed his excitement for being on a playoff team, again, it seems like he wasn't used to the spotlight anymore, and laid a big, fat egg. Funny enough, this wasn't his worst playoff series ever. Kuzma has a habit of shrinking under pressure, even back in Los Angeles. Sadly, Kuzma is locked into a contract worth $23 million a year until 2027. Absolutely disgusting. It's one thing to have your stars being overpaid. It's another to have a role player being paid starter-level money, yet looked completely unplayable in the playoffs. In fact, the Bucks had multiple unplayable role players in the playoffs. Brook Lopez could not keep up with the faster, athletic Pacers. The Bucks have loads of debt salary on their roster, to the point where it makes you wonder, is it even possible for them to trade away all these negative assets and still compete during the era of Giannis? Jared Vanderbilt. It wasn't too long ago when Jared Vanderbilt was considered one of the NBA's brightest young prospects. The dude was a 6'9" athletic marvel who provided all the intangibles a playoff team needs to excel to the next level. Jaden McDaniels is the guy who the Wolves thought Vanderbilt would ultimately become. But when he got traded as part of the package to receive Rudy Gobert, Vanderbilt's career fell apart in 2023. The Lakers gave him a 4-year, $48 million extension, which seemed reasonable at the time. Some would even say that was a good deal. They gave him this money based off his past accomplishments on the Wolves, with hope that he could be that intangible glue guy in Los Angeles. What the Lakers did not account for, however, was Vanderbilt's body breaking down at the spry age of 24. In the 2023-24 campaign, Vanderbilt mysteriously missed most of the year with a recurring foot problem that seemingly never went away. I say mysterious because it always seemed like he was supposed to come back and return, but he would always be like 2, 3, 4 weeks behind schedule after the season concluded. The doctors discovered he had a lingering bone spur, along with a strange soreness in his heel that wouldn't heal properly. As a result, Vanderbilt was forced to get surgery on both of his feet. Several years have passed, and post-surgery, Vanderbilt looks nothing like the guy who the Lakers gave $12 million a year for. In fact, the team underwent significant roster changes since then. But one thing remains certain: Vanderbilt cannot play anymore to the wing. Vanderbilt faked the handback and Connolly chasing. Consequently, he saw a severe reduction in playing time, and by the playoffs, he was even less effective, if that's even possible. Even when Vanderbilt is on the court, nobody guards him. The dude has a concerning lack of offensive talent. He can't dribble, he can't pass, he can't even shoot, and with the burden of his foot problems, he doesn't even look athletic or energetic anymore, and those were his supposed strengths on paper. $12 million per year is not an egregious amount in the modern NBA landscape, but think of it this way. The Lakers are already in desperate need of more depth, so that $12 million is essentially wasted on dead cap space, considering his minuscule impact. Not to mention he has the longest remaining contract out of anyone on the current roster. With a player option, he could remain a Laker until 2028. Keep cashing them checks, Vando. I guess that's been the story of the twilight years of LeBron's career, with some disastrous contracts and role players who've hampered the Lakers from returning to their championship glory. Terry Rozier, in a Bill Simmons podcast on January 2024, he said, "Probably the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Quote, Terry Rozier is going to give the Heat 80% of the offense Damian Lillard does, and better defense. Like what?" Now, to be fair to Bill, he said this when Rozier was having a career season across the board. Immediately upon his arrival to Miami, his numbers dipped, and a year later his entire game got thrown out the window as the season progressed. He had trouble fitting in with the Heat after doing whatever he wanted in Charlotte for 5 years. He couldn't grasp what it was like to play for a competent coach. Now, with an offense that isn't just let the guards do whatever they want. Soon, he fell out of the rotation and did not appear in a single game for the Heat in the playoffs. Not like it would have mattered. To go from putting somewhat decent numbers to this? Oh, I forgot. He's also going to make $26 million next year. However, Rozier became the center of scrutiny for a different reason. On January 30th, 2025, ESPN reported that Rozier was under federal investigation in regards to unusual betting activity. They investigated in a specific game back in March of 2023, but the investigation didn't turn up much evidence, and unlike Jonty Porter, Rozier was cleared of all charges. He was found not guilty, but still, this was the cherry on top of a player who literally couldn't do anything right on the court, and now he has all this off-court drama too. Heat fans wanted him gone as soon as possible. Fortunately, with his contract set to expire in just one more season, faith in humanity will soon be restored. Isaiah Stewart, besides having, in my opinion, the best nickname in the league right now, Beef Stew, is known more as an instigator, number one guy. I bet every time you see a highlight of him, he's probably engaged in a confrontation or a fight. During the Pistons' dark years, Stewart became a prominent figure for his toughness and resilience, and if you watch his demeanor, you probably wouldn't even think he was in his early 20s. And back in the summer of 23, the Pistons signed him to a 4-year, $60 million extension, with the hopes that he'd be a core piece of this young team for years to come. What resulted was the worst season in Pistons history. There were too many problems with his roster that you can count, but the main one was the dreadful spacing. So when the Pistons made a concerted effort to go out and sign free agents to get better, Stewart went from a starter, playing 30 minutes a night, to the bench, playing fewer than 20 minutes a night. Tobias Harris took his place as the starting power forward, and while he's not a great shooter, he's good enough to make the defense pay more attention. Some staunch Pistons fans have wondered, is this bad for Stewart's development to lose his starting spot to Tobias Harris? His 5th season in the NBA saw him register a career low in minutes, points, rebounds, and three-point rates. Stewart's contract is certainly not the worst in the league, but this is a critical stage for the Pistons' future. Their transactions during this time will determine if they can sustain a playoff contender for years to come. Or will they become like the Hawks and stay mediocre with $15 million a year? That's starter-level money going to a player who doesn't fit in the starting lineup. And finally, Patrick Williams. Here's a fun fact. Patrick Williams is the 3rd highest-paid player on the Chicago Bulls, making $18 million per year until 2029. There's been 22 different players who played at least one game for the team in the 2024-25 season. Out of those 22 players, Patrick Williams ranked with the worst plus-minus and the lowest win shares per 48 minutes. The dude is arguably the worst player on this team, yet he's making $18 million a year and playing over 25 minutes a game. You don't even need to see all these advanced stats to know how bad he is. A dude shooting less than 40% from the field as a power forward. The 3 drives on Larabia. Pull-up hook. No good, bound loose. Williams has it. Couple of up fakes, the kick out, knocked out. He can't rebound, his three-point shot fell off, and it's safe to say, as the 4th pick of the 2020 draft, Patrick Williams is a bust. It's honestly impressive how the Bulls still remained an average team for all these years, considering they've had this massive detriment actively hurting them. He might be the worst player in the entire league, if you consider the amount of money he's making and his actual production on the court. Dude has a negative impact across the board. On the bright side, the Bulls aren't trying to win the championship. It seems like their ownership is satisfied with selling out home games year after year and maintaining the status quo. They've had the highest attendance in the league for 4 straight seasons, all thanks to the legacy that the great Michael Jordan left behind. Obviously, this breeds a conflict of interest because Bulls fans are clearly not satisfied with this team. Trading away Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan was the best thing they could have done because it indicates the Bulls are trying to move on and start over. For Patrick Williams, however, his biggest obstacle has been himself, with Coach Donovan advocating, quote, "I don't necessarily have a great answer on where he is mentally or what's going through his head in the course of a game. I do think that one of the things that he struggled and battles with is where he's the harshest critic on himself on the court." Injuries breed inconsistency, and they hurt his confidence over the years. At this stage of his career, it's safe to say he's not part of the Bulls' future plans anymore. That is, if they can find a way to get rid of him anyway. Those were 6 role players with the most miserable contracts. For most of these guys, it wasn't like this when they were first signed. But over time, not everyone improves as you expect them to. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Can you think of any other players who might fit the theme of this video? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.